Welcome to the Sonic Days podcast, where we get into the many different aspects of audio. This season is recorded live at Sonic Days 2024. At the Rudolph Tegners Museum in Statuepark in Northern Zealand, sound and sculpture merge into a unique artistic experience. Composer Ditte Rønn has created a series of spatial sound pieces using acoustic instruments and omnidirectional speakers suspended in trees to craft a dynamic musical dialogue with the surrounding environment. In this episode of the Sonic Days podcast, Ditte shares her creative process from drawing inspiration from Tegners sculptures to overcoming the technical challenges of outdoor sound installations.
Welcome. I'm going to talk about trilogy, 3 years collaboration with Rudolph Tegners Museum. And I have made a sound piece every year. It started with the first one, and then there was some positive feedback, and then we just continued. I'm just going to do some small soundings from the first 2 pieces, and then the third piece will be played in the hall in atrium at ground level. So we're going to be strictly on time. That's the plan. Here we are. This is Northern Zealand, Dronningmølle. So this is like the area. It's a museum, Rudolph Tegners Museum, the grey one, and then the Statuepark. That is a kind of a huge area with statues placed around. So a lot of people come there every year. Like I think they have like 100,000 cliques, but of course it's also the same people with the dogs and stuff like that, and running people. And then near the museum is a small collection of trees. So from the top, this is kind of looking into the small forest, and this is the wooden furniture in the middle, and then I have kind of found a circle in the trees, and we have hung up 6 omnidirectional speakers. So it's just outside the museum, and it's also free of charge, so people can come there all the time. So I've done these 3 pieces, 2022 Mod lyset, and 2023 Udspændt, and then this year A kød og æter. And all the pieces have been playing every day, all days of the week, at 4 times every day. From kind of April or the 1st of June until November. But actually Mod lyset, it played all the way until 2023. And all the pieces have been around like 28 to 32 minutes. That I have found is a kind of a nice length. It's like you feel you get something, but you still don't get totally overwhelmed. And we have been making some video with a dancer. You can do different things on the wooden furniture, of course. So a little bit about me. I come from a rhythmic, like singer-songwriter background, conservatory, stuff like that. Jazz, indie, and writing own songs, and been doing some improvisation, singing in loops, singing in guitar pedals, stuff like that, and moved over to classical composition, contemporary music, and more abstract things, and enjoying to compose with classical music and also on scores, of course. So for me, it was like getting a lot of new dolls, to work with other musicians. So I compose in scores. I also do improvisation as a method and a part of the pieces, both acoustic and then electronic. So now I just combine the rhythmic jazz scene and together with the classical musicians. So I also combine musicians in each project sometimes, whatever makes sense. But using this kind of really jamming democracy in the process, because the classical is much more hierarchical, but we kind of do both. And then I've been collaborating with Carl Henning Pedersen and Elsa Ahlfeldt Museum for a 4-year period, but doing 5 different exhibitions. Some of it was like sound design for paintings, and some of it was a huge choir piece that is also still playing there, and then Tegners Museum. So this collaboration with museums has been kind of a way that has turned out on my path. In general, kind of cross-aesthetics projects, museums is one thing, but also other things like painting and drawings, ceramic, poetry and literature. I work together with poets as well, storytelling, sculptures like Tegner, and also been doing music and sound design for theater, and also played on the scene. So it's like moving around. But in my kind of ground spirit, I'm a vocalist and singer-songwriter, a musician, and also a teacher. And then I collaborate with technical wizards like Jan. So here meet our joyful artist, Rudolph Tegners, he is some kind of a man and have been doing actually a famous sculpture. I was not recognized that much in his living time, but very much recognized for his expression was like too monument and too expressionist for Denmark at that time. So we have this kind of a aesthetics. The museum contains a lot of very, very big sculptures and also very small. He has been kind of a problematic relationship with women. I think they left him. So there is a kind of tense relationship with the female and also a kind of controversial male-female view that the man is like the man is the one who can access the world of the ideas, They can think big thoughts and the female is like with all the body and the lust and the, sensuality, the kind of dragging the man down, so that kind of thing. He's a strong character to kind of have a dialogue with. This is just trying to give a little impression of the space, the room that we kind of worked in. So now, and the setup, little bit expression about that. So we have the 6 speakers in kind of a circle, then the wooden furniture in the middle, and kind of a sweet spot. So they all hang 4 meters over ground in a circular form. Now we have put the last one this year. We put a subs inside the wooden furniture, and then we just use a Joko blue box player and Spatial mix and Spatial Revolution with Jan, and then it's just cabled as multi-channel, time triggered with a satellite thing. Yeah, sweet spot, but still flexible. Of course, you can move around, so you know that. And then the technical closet is used as a info spot, like this. So that's actually quite a small, intimate, simple setup. And just a working picture. So this, of course, contains Jan's work with measuring the speakers, the distance for making the virtual room in Spat for the mixing process. And running to and also further away from speakers. These speakers I fell in love with, and I met a guy that imports them from Italy to Denmark. So the speakers was actually a part of the first idea when I made contact with the museum, because all the statues, they also stand on concrete. There's something about this very heavy concrete material that gets kind of light, and it looks like one of the Danish lamp design, right? They have this kind of, they're omnidirectional, but this kind of playing in this direction. And then of course, because of the ball underneath, it has kind of a little bit a different zone below. So my approach in this way of working is very much that I like cross fields where genres and formats can kind of dissolve into each other. I'm driven by this contemporary composed music and sound art, but in a cross aesthetic field. I like to have this dialogue between me as an artist and other artists. I'm very much like a composer. I think in my head it's like, what is this piece about? What are we kind of exploring or talking about? I'm very much in the conceptual ideas. I'm very much inspired by philosophy and also my body sensations, if this piece should be feeling like this, So kind of connecting to the emotional states. Of course, the sculptures, it's just both their expression and the material, textures, the location, emotionality, blah, 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 yeah. Some effects that I want to collect. And that also, of course, makes the decision about the instruments. And then I like this kind of, it's like it's a concert or listening to an album that we kind of never do. So this kind of metaphor, like a cathedral or meditation room, where you can just, it's a potential room that you can just like lean into and be there for 30 minutes. Or dancing, children have been dancing around on this wooden furniture and stuff like that. And dates and a lot of other things, I guess. It's also at nighttime. And then I like including acoustic instruments, these extended techniques on instruments. There's actually not that much effects. It's much more played as maybe a string effect or something like that. And trying to keep the plugins a little bit down so it enters in Spatial. And then I have been working with 3 or 4 musicians, and I'm also sometimes participating. And this thing that people play together, this just very core music connection is very much a part of the music, I think. So I don't have a vision. I do have some kind of, going to this direction, but the piece kind of makes itself on the way. And that is always like, okay. And then, of course, choosing some very skilled musicians, because you really get something back. In my heart, I'm also a musician myself, and I think this kind of giving ownership and freedom to the musicians is really something that comes back. Of course, every project is like learning new composition skills, taking chances. I always have an element that I don't know what I'm doing, kind of. And then collaboration with Jan. My working process is through a piece is like the conceptual thoughts, instrumentation, and stuff like that. Then I draw different visual ideas. And then I end up with this raw material composed in score, so that is an example of that. And then we have a workshop with the musicians. And I'm telling my overall thoughts. And also correcting material, because they come with ideas. And then we also have some very simple ideas that we improvise. Like air, talking about air, how it is to be air. Stuff like, that can be an idea. Then we record in studio with separate rooms. Then I get all the files, and then the cutting phase comes. Then it's like Lego cluster also. So something is settled, but I also just find out what it can do. Then the files come to Jan Copier with a very few effects and a reference mix. And then I kind of try to do a visual storytelling idea about the Spatial mix. And then the final, and I'm thinking very much like a choreography. I'm very inspired by dance. I like that. And then the final mix in co-creation with Jan on location about 3 or 4 days. And we are making storytellings, and often we have to create new ideas also at that point, because the idea that I had didn't work, something like that. So this is also an example of this kind of semi-open composition and working with layers. So I'm quite analog in a way. Mod lyset, that was at 22. So this statue, it is like Niels Finsen was a scientist. He discovered the carbon arc light that could treat skin tuberculosis. That was a very, very nasty disease at that time. Then in the male-female, Tegners male-female thing, I felt that I needed to comment on that. So of course I had to put the female in the top as the highest being over the man. That's of course, just a small wink with the tail. So that ended with the soprano. That was a kind of goddess of light. And then the jazz trumpet as the male character, because he has this kind of do-do-do-do-do, like conquering the world. He has some statues that is very much like on a horse. And so then, of course, the male had to be this kind of war instrument. Tremolo, dissonance, polyrhythm, and high-built layers. I think it was like 4 or 5 layers of vocal and 4 or 5 layers of trumpet. So kind of having pillars and then trying to lay them down. The whole piece was built on a 9-tone scale from Fibonacci. That was some nerdy stuff I found. I wanted to get away from diatonic scale because I wanted to have a world that was not either major or minor. So we had to be in this kind of in-between. That also made the ability that I could actually fly almost everything. I could combine all the ideas because everything was composed in the same harmonic landscape. And then a lot of free interpretation to the musicians. And then also some keywords like upwards movement, the light, the sun, looking into other dimensions. And that was kind of some of the keywords for the piece. things like this. Maybe it's just a shot from another place. So she's singing in Greek, very short sentences, like. So that kind of world. After that, I've been doing a lot of conceptual ideas with a lot of distriction or dormer. So now I just wanted to do a songwriting, try to see what happens if I just don't think too much and just let go. So Udspændt is kind of a personal portrait around the human being Rudolph Tegner, because he's a complex man. This is a gravmæle, it's like of his mother. It's like a tombstone. So the young female is turning towards her original material and going back into the kind of mountain, So it's kind of really a beautiful tombstone. But he was a complex man with a lot of very, very tough father, and then the mother died very early. So he has a lot of vulnerability and, of course, hope and happiness, but also longing and sadness and frustration and disappointment and anger. So that kind of, what happens if I try to enter that landscape and walk around? So there's more like repeatable themes coming again and again. Also the breath for both the sensuality for his relationship with female, but also the breathing from the mother, a little theme that is kind of a hymn for me, like a symbol of the mother, stuff like that. Trying to build a landscape around that. That was string trio, halvcirkel girls playing these three, and then a little bit of my voice, and then some stones. The form is like walking around in a landscape of emotions and dilemma, painting a portrait of a complex man, and then there's another compositional form and repeating themes. Friction between layers, glissando, bending tones, still joyful and dancing, but also very sentimental. And then composing in layers like string trio, but trying to have more than one string trio. That was the goal of that. He has this really of course, really romanticized relationship with his mother. So this kind of, trying to have all the, and not, people can come and visit again. A lot of different ages, from kindergarten to old people. And also this thing that some of them doesn't know that it exists, so it kind of just starts, and they have this cool, oh my God, maybe we should sit here. So this kind of openness is, they have not any expectations of anything. So it's that kind of opens the mind in a way. And of course it changes during the season and the time of the day. So it's very different to hear it at evening or at noon. And then it's like that the sound is also kind of, sometimes it's not talking about itself, it's also a portal into the world behind. It's like you get more attention towards the trees and the leaves, and it's like something. It's not all about the piece. The piece is more like a catalysator for just presence. So that kind of struck me, that some people talked about this kind of behind the piece, and that's, I think, the very subtle and clever observation. And then of course it's just this free room that I talked about. There's just like you can just go there and sit with yourself. And people come there, some of the people that live there, they come again and again and hear it again. So then this kind of meditation room, kind of a cathedral. And then of course it's dialogue with the sounds. There are sheep in the area, we come into that. And then of course this kind of dialogue with Rudolph Tegners works. So the meaning is also that it reflects a new view on Rudolph Tegner, maybe. And then you can, we have done like with the arrangement with dance and poetry and writing session, non-stop writing with the piece in the background, stuff like that. Challenges, the Danish weather is really a huge thing. Yeah, so many problems with wind. There's something with this northern Sjælland. It's like every time there's a storm in Denmark, it's just like a hurricane there. I don't know why, it's just like... And of course water, sheep that walk around, they bite the cables, we found out, and they also bite out the boxes and then eat the samlemuffer, and and then there was no speaker there. Okay, so continuously small, low practical problems. Neighbors, the volume level, of course, starts here and then goes down here, and then we try to like sneak it up, and then, okay. So speakers, the speaker cabinets, it was kind of, we had to kind of fund new funding, because it's just like, I think they were made for Italy, for a spring garden, for a season, not Danish weather. So we had to, of course, like wire them in different directions, just like play and don't move. So that is a learning experience.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ditte.
Thank you.